I see you shiver with anticipation.
Hello, fellow lovers and movie lovers alike. I'm Hailey.
And I'm Javi.
And you're listening to the Just Be Poly podcast, where we discuss movies and in the end, answer the question,
could these problems be solved with polyamory?
Let's find out. Javi, tell us about this month's musical movie feature.
Well, in this cult classic, two virgin sweethearts, Brad and Janet, are stuck with a flat tire during a storm. Ugh. And so they discover a castle of Dr. Frankenfurter, a transgender scientist. As their innocence is lost, Brad and Janet meet a house full of wild characters, including a rock and roll biker and a creepy ass butler. Through elaborate dances and rock and roll, Frankenfurter unveils his latest creation, a big, muscular man named Rocky.
Rocky Horror
Picture Show. We're talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show this month.
We hope you're as stoked as we are.
Yeah, we took the summer off and now we're back.
We're so stoked to be back, and we hope we sound nice and crisp on these brand new microphones.
Yeah, we spent thousands of dollars. I took out a loan for these mics. I'm just kidding.
No, we spent thousands of dollars on our honeymoon because we just went on that over the summer too. And then we also used the leftover money to get these mics. So extra special thank you to everyone who blessed us.
That's right. We went to a bunch of musicals, and now we're going to do a musical season on this podcast. It's fantastic. I'm very stoked.
So excited.
Yeah. So what is your history with this film, with this phenomenon, really, of the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Wow. Oh my God. You know what? I actually, we have that question as we start watching our film. What does this film mean to you? And I wrote down what it meant when I started watching it, but my history with it, you just reminded me that I think the first time, wait, that's not true. I can't remember which came first, but I definitely know I saw a lot of this on Glee. I'm pretty sure I watched it on Glee when I was a kid, and I loved that show growing up. It was like totally a part of my teenage years, and it was really special. And I was even introduced to Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody through Glee. And that's, Queen, getting connected to Queen through Glee, that's incredible. And the same with Rocky Horror. So I feel like I'm probably not the only one who had a lot of their eyes open to different musical, what's the word? What am I thinking? It's like something that like is extra super duper special. I don't know. There it is, I guess, is what I mean. Extra super duper special.
Great.
Yeah, but one of my favorite memories about this musical was I think this might have been the first time I ever watched it, and wow, I feel like I'm just story timing right now, actually. So this is like two separate experiences that I had, and they are all connected to this experience, even with Javi, even with you guys right now. So pertaining to Rocky Horror Picture Show in particular, when I was like 13, my mom and my stepdad took me and my little sister. She's 3 years younger than me. So if I'm 13, she's 10. And she was a lot, like I was always kind of more interested in sex. And for me to like this didn't seem that odd. But my little sister, she was a lot more careful and cautious, and she walked lines in the rules a lot better than me growing up. That's how it occurred for me. I don't know. Girls are just bad girls who don't get caught, right? But so we go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was so funny. They're doing all the sex jokes, and I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. And they were like, who are the virgins? And me and my sister were like, yeah, us. And then they call on us and we go to the front, and then they start like putting like whipped cream. They have people on their knees and they put whipped cream on them, I think, or something like that. It was like a little out there, and I remember bits and pieces because I was 13. And then they get to us and they're like, you guys are too young to be up here. Go sit down.
Yeah. Who brought you over here?
Yeah. And then after a little while, my sister was like, I'm scared. Then that's not verbatim. That's just how it occurred to me as a 13-year-old who was just really excited to be there. And my parents were, upset anyways. They didn't want to be watching that with us. So we left, and it was awful. I was so upset, and I just wanted to go see that show again. And I didn't get to see that show performed in that way up until I think it was like last year or the year prior, where we went with a couple friend of ours, and it was awesome. We threw the rice and did the thing, and it was just awesome. So cool to be a part of that experience, and I'm so excited to be a part of it again this upcoming fall. And I had a similar experience with Wicked, where, and Javi knows this, so I'm sharing it with you. I went to New York with my stepdad, my mom, and my sister, and I will never forgive my family for what they did to me that summer. So the options, it was traumatic. It was traumatic. So we were going to Broadway, blessed, so excited. And the options were Spider-Man the Musical or Wicked. And I was outvoted. And we saw Spider-Man the Musical.
And who was playing in Wicked?
Well, I mean, I tell people it's Idina Menzel, but to be honest, I don't know. It's just that the possibility that it could have been Idina Menzel is present. even the possibility of seeing her is enough for me to carry this amount of hatred in my heart.
I'll carry it for you.
Yeah, honestly, I just like to tell people that so people feel extra bad for me because it broke my fucking heart. But anyway, so yeah, and over the summer we got to see Wicked, Hadestown 6, and the Book of Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing Wicked after what was like 2012, when I was denied the opportunity, was amazing.
12 years.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's just really interesting that not only like did that experience get resolved recently, but also the Rocky Horror Show experience got resolved recently. Like these were both shows that I was denied as a kid that I had longed to see for over a decade and was granted the opportunity both within the last year.
Making dreams come true out here.
Totally. So yeah, that's I guess my history, the way that you phrased that kind of brought up some memories. And so that was really cool. What this film, I think that what this film means to me, it changes actually each time I watch it. So now when I look over this, I'm going to read it to you what I wrote, but I will discover as I'm reading it if it still resonates, because every time I watch it, I feel like I get it a bit more, but I actually never feel like I get it. And that still is probably true. So I wrote, I've never totally understood this film. I've seen it almost 20 times, and I feel like I understand it slightly better each time. I love this film and the freedom and self-expression that it stands for. That is still true, actually. All of that is entirely still true. So that's what this film means to me. What does it mean to you?
Well, my history with it was that first time I ever heard any mention of it was during, and I'm not sure if it was in the book, but I remember in the movie of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, the main character goes to one of these showings of the Rocky Horror, and he he's a virgin, so he gets put up there and gets put in clothes that he's not comfortable with and stuff, and he's like a little embarrassed, but everyone's like cheering him on and all this stuff, and it's like a cool little moment. He's trying to break this wallflower out of his shell. But then last year, like you said, we went to this Rocky Horror showing with a bag of props, and I didn't know that there would be props there, and you had to interact with the film and all this stuff. And I was like, water guns to people, and I was like, oh snap, I'm like shooting water at random strangers and throwing rice in the air, and
Bread.
it was pretty fun. And then in the middle of that showing, I remembered the perks of being a wallflower, and then I made this dude get up there and like dress and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable getting up there and putting on a corset or something in front of all these strangers. So I was like,
you would look so good in a corset.
In the middle of it, I just like started like shying away from interacting anymore because I was like,
you're like, let me absolutely disappear.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going up there.
I didn't know you were dealing with that.
So I was like, I was afraid of getting up there and doing anything. But there was like no shadow acting or anybody, so there was like that didn't actually happen. There was no people getting up there. And now I play these songs in this musical with my band. So it's like I got these songs stuck in my head. And that was actually like my first note. I was like, I need to find out who is responsible for all these songs, you know, because I never paid much attention to them. But I have a lot to say about the music, like a lot. It's pretty cool. It's great music. But without getting too deep into it, what this film means to me now is like from the music aspect and just from the energy of this, where like the confidence of Frankenfurter and the leaps that the music will take sometimes, it's like a sort of I don't give a fuck attitude. I aspire to that. Yeah, I see this film as inspirational and motivational. That's what it means to me. It's an inspiration.
Cool.
It is cool.
Favorite quotes. Okay, I have mine.
I have a bunch of them.
You only get one. So my favorite quote is from Magenta and Frankenfurter, and she says, "I ask for nothing, master." And Frankenfurter says, "And you shall receive it in abundance."
Yeah, that's pretty good. Mine is what the film is about. It's like the thesis of the film. Give yourself over to absolute pleasure. It says it all right there. Don't think about it too hard. Don't think about this or that or this convention or your inhibitions or whatever. It's just, you just feel the pleasure. Just give yourself over to it.
I guess that quote for me is very abstract. And for me, it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly it means. And even as I'm listening to you, I don't actually know what I guess I get what you appreciate about it, but I'm only feel like that's your interpretation of it. Do you feel like that is the interpretation? Because I'm only perceiving it as your interpretation because I can think of like 4 different things it means, and some are positive and some are negative.
Well, it feels like that's what our main characters, Janet and Brad, are. That's where their characters change when they give themselves over to absolute pleasure. And that's the whole point of the film, is to stop being like Brad and Janet and start being more like Frankenfurter and all these people who are free and sexually liberated and accepting and of each other and all this.
I don't know. I guess it's just the term "give yourself over to absolute pleasure." It's like surrendering, sure, but simultaneously, I think of how they looked so discombobulated and confused, liberated, yes, but also kind of like very dazed and like kind of in a almost like a drunken stupor. You know, so it's like just because Frankenfurter said it and that's like the thesis of the film doesn't necessarily, I guess I'm interpreting it, you're saying it as like, this is the life lesson to take from the film. And that's not how it occurs for me. It occurs for me as like somebody giving somebody too much of something that makes them maybe a little ill.
Well, we could talk about Dr. Frankenfurter in more detail because he's not a good guy.
You don't think he's a good guy?
I don't think so.
I also concur.
Yeah, so it's like him saying, "Give yourself over to absolute pleasure." It's like
bad advice, guy.
it's like sexually liberating for them. But
no one can deny he's free.
But it is manipulated for his own gain.
I don't even know about that. Maybe. I think that is his philosophy. That's all. I have an honorable mention. Okay. My honorable mention for my favorite quote is, "His lust is so sincere."
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that while we were watching it too.
What's your favorite quote?
"Lost in space and meaning."
I had a feeling you would love that one.
Aren't we all lost in space and meaning?
Not me.
No.
Nope.
You know exactly where you are.
I'm on the planet Earth.
You know exactly what you mean.
I know what I'm about.
Yeah, that's true.
Respect.
Yeah.
Put some respect on my name. I'm Hailey.
Toughest Hailey around.
Yeah, I am. So, I'm going to be speaking on the visual aspects of the film. So, this movie for me was very similar to my experience with Poor Things, where it felt like there was so much to do in terms of the research that I totally felt like a tsunami of it. And it felt like I didn't get into it as deeply as I would have liked. But there were some things that I did note that I found really interesting. But they're like, some are obvious and some are not. One thing I did discover was that it seems that, according to some videos that I found, that Easter eggs being in films, period, started occurring because there were so many Easter eggs in Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I don't have that many examples, but the video that I was watching had something like just underneath a chair. So, and I'm not even sure what the Easter eggs are for, but I thought it was really interesting that the massive wave of putting Easter eggs in film that was created from Rocky Horror Picture Show, I never would have guessed that that's kind of how it started. So that was really cool.
They literally had Easter eggs?
No, I don't think, no, not Easter. I don't think so. Like, Easter egg, like clues to things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Not eggs, literally. I just know that that's what the video said, was that Easter eggs started being a thing in film because of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And that's what I was very impressed by. But no, I don't know what the Easter eggs are. So have happy hunting. I don't like puzzles. And I also don't like games. I don't play no games. Okay? If you want to play me in Scrabble, I'll see you on maybe Tuesday night.
No, play her in Othello. Hand your ass.
Anyway, so and then I'm not sure if you could necessarily call this an Easter egg, but it does seem like there's a ginormous tribute to art in this film. So one thing that is like kind of very obvious, I forget what the painting is called offhandedly, but it's notorious, and it's the painting of the farmer and his wife, I'm pretty sure is what it's called, and it's an American Gothic painting of a Caucasian seeming couple in front of a barn.
Holding a pitchfork.
Yeah, holding a pitchfork. Apparently that was actually like their father and daughter or something like that, or not even. Well, like, no, I can't remember, but they're actually not related. Those the people who posed for that painting. I learned about this with my students. It was kind of fun. So yeah, you'll see at the beginning of the film during the scene, "Damn It, Janet," you'll see Frankenfurter kind of posing with the guy who plays Riff Raff. You know his name, right?
Richard O'Brien.
Richard O'Brien, who apparently wrote the music, right?
The genius.
Yeah, and he this was his baby.
I'm gonna talk about him a lot in a second.
Sure. Yeah, so he was there playing like the Caucasian farmer, and then there was like a Caucasian lady next to him. You see them posing like that at the beginning of the film, like the American Gothic painting. So there's a lot of tribute, it seems, to art throughout. Offhandedly, there's the whole aspect of like Medusa and the stone. So that was really pretty and really interesting. I'm thinking of the billboard. I remember like something that they say a lot in the research is the original name of the film or the show was supposed to be called They Came from Denton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then that was not something that I really thought about at all, was where they were from. Who cares? Whatever. But it was like a tribute to a certain type of movie. Maybe you're familiar in your research, you came across that. Like older movies.
I think just from some of those 50s B alien movies, they came from outer space.
It was, campy. They were aiming for campy. And it's still kind of a definition that I struggle with understanding, but I feel like I know the vibe more now when they're describing it. And then at the beginning, right, with the whole like love arrow thing, you see a sign that says Denton on it. There were other tributes to different paintings throughout the film, though offhandedly I can't remember what they are. But yeah, there's a lot of Easter eggs in there like that. Apparently Disney bought Rocky Horror Picture Show, and you see or something like that. Like it's like the studio is owned by Disney, and that's why in the film the girl with the short hair, what's her name? You remember?
I don't know.
Well, we're gonna get our asses kicked if we don't figure that out. Let's get her name.
They're really poking through that shirt.
You flirting with me? I have a boyfriend. Hey, update.
Wife.
Well, no, but like update. I have a boyfriend, guys. He's cute. Javi and him, they're like basically besties.
Sorry, I didn't know you had a boyfriend. I'll be on my way. Don't tell my wife.
Columbia. Short hair, red. So, Columbia in her room had on a Mickey Mouse hat, and that was to pay tribute to Disney. I don't remember anything else.
Okay. Cool.
I'm sure there's like a million more things, but yeah, that's like I just definitely didn't dig as deeply as I would have loved to. But it's definitely rich with the art and the tribute to art. And I definitely was present to that as I was researching. It was a lot deeper than I anticipated.
Yeah, I recognized that. I recognized that painting of the farmer. I didn't know that they weren't related. The actual models for it. I thought it was cool to like, oh look, a little homage to some classical painting, and then I was like, wait,
I think he's actually a baker too, like not a farmer.
Oh, okay. And then I was like, while I was seeing that scene, I was like, wait, isn't that the dude in the castle? And it's like, oh shit, it's the dude in the castle.
Yeah. I also just remembered about that American Gothic painting because like you expressed interest in it. I was like, oh, what else do I remember about it then if he likes learning about that? So the reason that the artist was drawn to that was because it wasn't very typical to see an Gothic architecture in America. And I think he drove past the window in that building. And then he, I think just like asked the person who owned the house to pose in front of his house so he could paint the house.
So I'll speak on the music aspects of this now. So when we watch these movies and we analyze them, we have sheets of paper with like little sections like, all right, what's your favorite scene? What are the themes for polyamory? Then there's like, I wonder notes. It's like, I wonder. And then it's like, that's your research prompt. You better research that. My only thing on that research prompt was, who wrote this music? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark.
They are unhinged.
Underline. I had to figure it out. It didn't take me long. It was Riff Raff. The guy who plays Riff Raff, Richard O'Brien.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he wrote the whole thing. And I was like, that guy? What?
I know. It's like of all the people, like I would have just suspected that the guy who played Frankenfurter would be more likely to write it. I guess it's just like when people write things, they usually star in them in a big way.
Like Lin-Manuel.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't think like it's, of course he casted himself in it. He's a character, but I would have suspected that somebody who wrote it would have taken an even larger role. But even though actually he's like the main villain. So I guess it would make sense that somebody who would write something like this would be drawn to the villain role.
He's in it from beginning to end. You know, he's like the farmer at the beginning, and he's the alien at the end and all that.
He's an unsuspecting villain. And I think that's why even now he doesn't occur to me as a real threat, even though he literally kills Frankenfurter at the end.
Yeah.
Damn. I feel like I just wrecked myself.
LOL. So yeah, Richard O'Brien, he was like a struggling actor back in the 70s or the 60s or whenever he wrote this. And he was just like shooting the shit one summer or one winter or whatever. He was like jobless. He was just not doing anything. So he just like wrote a musical just for shits and giggles, like no ideas of stardom. He wrote like 10 songs and he showed them to one of his friends or whatever. And they were like, one of his friends was like a producer or something like that. And he was like, let me take it to a theater. Maybe they'll like it. So they put it on and he was like, all right, we'll run it. And it got some traction. And he was like, oh, dope. And so they got Tim Curry on it. He was a
budding actor. Like, I don't think he was not
shit to
nothing.
His name.
Yeah, nothing.
So that's where Tim Curry got his start, you know? And so they got a studio on board and they were like, all right, let's make a movie. So they made a movie with American actors. That was Brad and Janet and Meatloaf in it.
And Meatloaf was a nobody too.
Yeah. And so they did it. They did the whole movie and then it bombed. It was awful. It was like they did not get sales.
People were walking out in crowds.
And they were like, what is this? They were like, nah, it's not worth our time. So
steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah. So Richard O'Brien was like, all right, well, we had our fun, you know, and we got to say we did that. All right, cool. And that was going to be it. And just going to get a job or whatever. But one of the producers was like, it saw that it had some success in one of the midnight theaters. So like some theaters would just show it like just a cheap film at midnight, and these New York movie theaters saw that they started pulling in big crowds at midnight because, you know, people would just want to see it. At midnight, people are a little weird. So they were like, this weird movie is bringing in weird people, but they're coming in droves. So I guess we'll keep showing it. And they keep selling tickets. And eventually one person was like, Janet didn't have an umbrella. And he was like, buy an umbrella, cheap bitch, or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the story of how it started. People talking back to the theater.
When she puts the newspaper over her head.
Yeah.
Buy an umbrella, you cheap bitch.
Yeah.
And then it changed history.
Yeah.
As the people face kept, of the show as we know it.
People kept trying to think of stuff to say, coming back every week, and eventually Richard O'Brien got the word. And it's like, you know, this, in New York at midnight it's doing pretty well. I was like, huh, really? And then it took off decades later. Still. So they
had a video game apparently. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah, a video game. They had made movies. There was a redo recently with the girl from Victorious.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I had no idea the domino effect that this movie had.
Yeah, so it is.
Or this musical had.
It's the world record holder for the longest running theatrical release ever.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 46 years, I don't know, many years, many decades. No other movie has been in the theater that long. It's crazy.
I believe that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I used to not like these songs. I used to think these songs were like hokey.
What's that mean?
Like campy, cheesy, corny.
Okay.
These songs use simple chords and progressions, but the song structures, when I was listening to it this time, and the orchestrations and the length that the progressions are played around with, and it's like it's really difficult to keep the vibe the same for every song and yet not make every song feel the same. It's like really hard to do. So it's like pretty impressive, right? It's like lightning in a bottle. When I was listening to a documentary where they were saying when they had this on the theater for the first time, they only had 4 musicians. And so the musicians had to like double up on instruments. So somebody would be playing bass and saxophone at the same time, or like keyboard and xylophone at the same time, you know? Like I've done that before, and that's like so hard to do.
You can barely chew bubblegum and walk.
Yeah. These guys had to do like multiple instruments every night. It's so crazy. Even the music director, which MDs don't be doing that. But then when they did the movie version, they got so much money, so they could hire like a 30-piece orchestra. So there was just like, if you listen to this soundtrack with headphones, please do that, because you're gonna hear like so many layers on top of each other, like shit you didn't even hear before. There's just so many little details added on. So the orchestrations are amazing. They had such a variety of sounds going on each song, but still kept that pop, blues, rock and roll musical aesthetic alive throughout the whole thing. And I had this thought multiple times while listening to these songs, that it felt like this was the baby of Queen, ABBA, and Grease put together. You know, like the vocal harmonies and chord progressions of ABBA, the rock and roll aesthetic of Grease, and the flair of Freddie Mercury, and the grandiose operatic effect of Queen in general too. I feel like all of that was mishmashed together. It's the best way to put it. And you know, whoever the hired musicians were, they were great. But I'm telling you, the piano player is like going nuts the whole time. This dude going like, he's like ripping it for no reason. Like, I remembered Time Warp before I even knew of the movie because of Richard O'Brien as Riff Raff. Because when he says, "During the Time Warp,"
oh yeah,
like his delivery on it,
yeah,
or under sedation.
You're really good at that.
I love it. It's so good. Like every time I hear it, it never gets old. His delivery of it.
Yeah.
And like I saw a video of him like 30 years later playing it on acoustic, and he's like playing it really chill, like near a campfire or something. Like, you know,
I guess
he's like walking around in a mansion, and then he's like in a backyard with people, and he's playing it to them.
He's doing like a behind the music video for behind the music space video for MTV's behind the music segment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, but then I heard him on the acoustic, and he was singing nice and soft, and like he has control. Like he's actually like a really talented singer. He has a lot of control and dynamic range. There's a really the coolest chord of this whole musical is at the end of Eddie's dad's song. The guy in the wheelchair.
That's not his dad.
That is. No. Yeah, Meatloaf's dad. That's
his dad?
Yeah. So
really?
It's
Javi, I had no clue. Yeah. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, the song that he sings at the dinner table.
I thought that was his uncle. Are you sure?
Someone correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
No one's who's gonna jump out of the microphone and correct you?
In the comments.
That's some massive information that I'm not sure about. So who's dad? Eddie's dad, Rocky Horror. Oh, look. The guy who does the reading, he's called the criminologist.
Oh, so he's reading. Okay, so that was something I had a question about. Who is this narrator and why is he talking to us? So he's a criminologist, so he's reading a criminal report to us.
Yeah.
He's talking to us about it. Okay. Cool. That makes sense now. And by the way, the report that the criminologist is reading, we see the title. It's called The Denton Affair. That's what this event is.
Oh, and they had an affair.
Oh, yeah. True. That's what this report or event is officially called in this world. So you're right. It's the uncle of Eddie.
Uncle! Uncle! Yeah! Yeah! God, it feels good to be right. Did it hurt when you Googled it and I was right?
No. So the uncle at the end of Eddie's uncle's song, there's a beautiful chord that rings along when he says,
"What a god."
Makes you cry. Hey, hey,
und I did.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about the music. Final verdict, thumbs up. Pretty good. Also, I love the first song. Science fiction, double feature, or whatever. You know, that first song with the lips.
Yeah.
It basically told us everything that's going to happen in the story.
Like in the beginning of Poor Things with the visual art.
Yeah, or in the beginning of Midsommar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with the tapestry.
Love when films just spoil the film for us.
No, because even as you watch it, you don't know what's happening. So no, that's very interesting ways to communicate what's coming.
Yeah.
I did some research on the lips. I found out whose they were. The woman who plays Magenta, they were her lips. And then I was like, who sang the song? And it was the riffraff, Mr.
Richard O'Brien.
Yeah, he sang that song. But it's Magenta's lips at the beginning.
Interesting. You didn't think he had good lips, I guess.
Feminine lips. It kind of plays with the whole gender fluidity of the film.
Highly concentrate. Stop putting your tic-tac.
Okay, I'll put my tic-tac-toe board away.
Yeah, let's call it that. For
the longest time, it was the whole alien aspect that really confused me. Oh, there's just one thing I remembered. This show is apparently loosely based on Frankenstein. The tank that Rocky was in, the rainbow tank, that was actually used in Frankenstein and turned sideways, and then they painted it with the rainbow to represent Rocky's like little tub, like Daredevil.
I love that tub, that little rainbow tub. I actually had a note that it was like, it's funny. It's like inspired by science fiction and horror, specifically like campy 50s B horror in science fiction. And it's cool because it's like Frankenfurter comes in dressed like Dracula with his cape and everything, and then boom, out with the corset and everything. And then
that outfit is just incredible. Oh, and the whole star for gay people, or not the star, sorry, the triangle. You know, that was like something that I think they were doing during the Nazi regime, because I dressed up as Frankenfurter once for this thing I used to do. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't realize I was going to be speaking so much right now, but I dressed up as Frankenfurter for my Halloween month. And I, bought a raincoat. I put it on backwards. I had to design the triangle, and I didn't know what it was. So I decided to research it. And they used to make homosexuals wear that triangle, or maybe queer people too. I don't know. But they wore the triangle so that they were easily identifiable. And they also had them do the same thing with Jews. So that was really interesting. And it was born as a symbol of pride in this film.
Cool. Well, yeah, so Dracula at first, and then Rocky is Frankenstein, and then it turns into an alien story, and then by the end, it's King Kong.
That's so funny.
I thought that was so cool.
That is really cool.
And I see a lot of influences from other horror movies, like A Clockwork Orange. Every time I went into a POV shot, I was like, that's a Clockwork Orange right there. And they were both released in the 70s, so I don't know the date and time, but whether it was or not, those POV shots were popular in that time, and they looked pretty similar. So that was another horror inspiration I saw.
Magenta's hair in the end looked like Frankenstein's bride, with the white hair going up the side in a squiggly, snaky line. Oh, the gun, the laser gun that Riff Raff has at the end to shoot Frankenfurter is also a visual representation of the American Gothic painting.
Really? How so?
It looks like a pitchfork.
Oh.
And he holds it again standing next to Magenta.
Dang, that's a cool callback. Nice. You know, the costume designer and makeup artist and all that, she apparently had never seen a science fiction horror film or anything like that before. And they were like, all right, this person's an alien. So she just thought, okay, alien. And she just made up alien. And like alien costume. And it was pretty close, you know?
What? How is it close?
Because it looks like, oh, this is like outer space costume. It looks.
I guess this is like retro
and
is the vibe. I wouldn't say it looks like an alien costume. I would say they look like they're. It's like space girl. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because that's like that kind of like space girl energy. That's kind of like the energy in those 50s, like really cheesy.
Yeah, you're right.
B movies, and they were like, do something like that, but she had never seen that, and then she still did it exactly like that.
True.
So I just thought that was pretty cool.
Trust
like her
your
intuition.
Guts,
Yeah. And she said there was a quote by her that she said that her designs in Rocky Horror started trends in fashion. I forget exactly the inspirations that she said she innovated, but I think it was something like fishnets, colored hair, things like that she says she was the one who started it. Could very well be that she was definitely a big piece of the puzzle there. I think punk rock music had a lot of that, and I think she might have been inspired from that and popularized it. But that's just me. I'm not a historian. I'm just a guy.
You were such a troll. Seeing the actors in their older age, as I was researching them, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I knew this man's face for years and I had no idea that this was him younger. And specifically, I'm referring to the man who played Brad. Susan Sarandon, like I've seen her face. Like, yeah, I know her. Like I've seen her age and stuff. But the man who played Brad, he ended up changing so much. I think he was. No, that could have been him. But anyway, I just remember seeing him in a lot of other features growing up, and I was like, "Whoa, it's the same guy." So for me, that was just like kind of mind-boggling, and I really enjoyed seeing, young versus old, and seeing the progression of age. I just thought it was cool. It's like it's just interesting to see how people grow up.
Mm-hmm. Tim Curry has aged well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually.
Did you know there was a sequel?
I think I might have found that in my research, but it's not ringing a bell right now.
I watched about 6 minutes of it.
I heard it was underwhelming.
Yeah, I couldn't get through the 7th minute.
Well, damn.
It was just like too much. It's like you go from the top of a mountain to like a deep valley.
Jeez. Jeez. Well, yeah, I heard a lot of the things that they did afterwards just weren't as successful. Yeah.
No,
it was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, there was one person who was like, I actually love the sequel more than the original. But that's how
I feel about Grease too.
Oh yeah.
Don't crucify me.
Well, the most memorable song from the whole Grease and Grease 2 soundtrack is Cool Rider, and that was in Grease 2.
So good. Hey, I was wondering, maybe we could introduce a new segment for this season. Are you ready to take that on with me?
Depends what it is.
I think you'll find it you'll find yourself very agreeable. Maybe we could introduce our favorite character.
All right.
Okay. You want me to go first?
Sure.
My favorite character is, it's actually quite hard to pick. I'm going to say Magenta. I like her accent. I like her outfit. I like her makeup. I like her power. I like her sexual prowess. I like how she's like assertive but reserved at the same time. It's also, this isn't why I like her, but in the research, and also like it's clear watching the show, but you just like want to question it. You don't like totally want to believe that they're like having an incestuous relationship, but they like are. Yeah, but they're also aliens, so it's like, it's just their culture, as Sabrina Carpenter puts it. It's just your culture. Yeah. And they roll their eyes, but it's just your culture.
Don't judge them. It's just their culture. I'm not gonna be basic. We all know. Tim Curry's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got that.
For my pick, though, I say Rocky.
Rocky?
Yeah.
Rocky!
I think he's actually a pretty...
His name's actually Rocky Horror. Did you know? His full name's Rocky Horror. I didn't know that.
Well, I think Rocky is fairly faithful to the original source material of Frankenstein, in that, you know, we see so many depictions of Frankenstein's being like, brain, or whatever, you know, whatever.
Brains?
I don't know. But in the original novel, you know, the first time Frankenstein meets his monster,
You've made me, and I'm questioning my existence. Please bequeath me with a bride.
yeah, he's like very linguistically evolved. Like, this dude has vocabulary, and he's in his head during his song. Once Rocky is born, he's very eloquent in his communication about his feelings. He's
only when he's in song.
Yeah, in his head, like he's talking about some pretty abstract.
I don't think
feelings.
It's in his head. I think. Well, do you mind if I give my interpretation?
Sure.
That's okay. So I think that it's not him thinking or him saying things. I think that as viewers, the songs only serve to represent to us as an audience what he's thinking and feeling. Instead, what he's experiencing is what we are meant to get. And he's only like verbal in song, and then actually in character, he is dumb and cannot speak. Like it reminds me of the dog in Big Mouth. Ruff, ruff. Life is rough.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like that. It's like dogs can't speak, but it's like putting you know, it's like things like that, like personifying things that can't have a certain amount of expression.
Yeah.
That's how it occurs for me, because it's like all of a sudden he can't speak. No, that doesn't make sense. So I think it's just supposed to serve as a melodic metaphor.
Is it just happening in his head, or is it just for our benefit for
it's
the
like
viewer?
He can't speak English and he's singing in English, so that doesn't make sense. Because if he all of a sudden could sing English, then that was actually a representation of what he was capable of. Then he could be more than fine speaking English, but that's not the case.
Yeah, musicals don't be making sense anyways.
Well,
like,
it's like
everybody breaks out in song, you know, and it's like when people parody it, they're like, why are you singing and dancing right now? You know, so it's like, since this is not reality, like he isn't thinking this because he can't actually speak. He's just like feeling these things, and we as the audience are given insight into what he's feeling through him singing this song.
Yeah.
So actually that makes a lot of sense, what you're saying, because that's kind of like the theme for musicals in general. It's kind of what they do.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's how I interpreted this, and I think that is actually like a correct interpretation versus other things. I can't speak that confidently about it. I feel like this is the correct interpretation, and it took me a while to get to this point. I didn't get to that point until like the 15th view, and I was like, yeah, I think that's what's happening, because he can't seem to speak unless he's singing.
All right, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and I also wanted to communicate, like, you know, metaphors can be ripped apart. So somebody listening could absolutely think, oh no, that's totally wrong. It means this. But it's just kind of like how, so for example, it's like kind of obvious to see that this is a metaphor or inspired by Frankenstein. But when you look at like the aspect of like zombies or coming back to life and things like that, another person could be like, it's clearly a metaphor for Jesus, you know? And it's like, yeah, it's technically the same thing, and it's like a different metaphor, and you can choose to see it that way, and that is okay, but it's kind of more obvious to see it's Frankenstein, and that's kind of how this occurred for me too.
Mm-hmm.
As a metaphor to kind of maybe like that helps maybe with anything that you try to figure out.
Frankenstein? I thought it was Jesus this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Somebody somewhere, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Who knows? They do bring up Satanism. Something else that was interesting that I found was there's this, you know, the one scene where Eddie's uncle comes through the tile.
No.
In the laboratory right before everyone gets Medusa'd. He like bursts through the tile in his chair. You don't remember that?
No.
He like when there's the huge confrontation and everyone gets stonified, he goes on this little travel thing around the castle, and then he goes around Magenta and Columbia, and then breaks into the laboratory like, and then breaks through the tile, and he's got chalk and dust all over his face, and then he comes down the pathway. I can't believe you don't remember this. So, but it was just funny because apparently they realized that in their set, there wasn't really a way for the character to make sense entering the space that he was in. So they just had him burst through the wall.
Okay. You gotta get creative, man.
Yeah.
All right.
There's like, like some of the more obvious things about like obviously this is like breaking gender stereotypes and roles and things like that. And like Brad and Janet represent the traditional values being broken.
So he breaks the wall. And then there's fourth wall breaks from the narrator, or the criminologist.
Yeah, it's really fun. And there's Easter eggs in there too. One of the Easter eggs, there's a painting of it's a famous painting, but I don't know what it's called. And I think I've seen it before, but like maybe in art history, like it's not really, it doesn't look like anything that special to me. But it's like a woman sitting in a chair, basically, kind of like looking out a window or something. And in the criminology place, one of the Easter eggs was in one of the books he has open is that painting. But if you look closer, it's actually Meatloaf dressed as a woman.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. There's some funny stuff like that.
Who found that? Cool.
Mm-hmm. I did not really get, and even though Frankenfurter directly says it, he goes, "Do you think it was a mistake splitting their brain amongst the two of them?" I only got it in this last viewing that what happened was he cut Eddie's brain in half and put half of it in Rocky's body.
Oh.
And that's why Eddie had that scar across his head and he was in the freezer.
Yeah. Oh, poor Meatloaf.
He was just a delivery boy.
Yeah.
Just got into some trouble. He just wanted porn, sex, and rock and roll.
Don't we all?
It's okay. He didn't like his teddy. We knew he was a no good kid.
Mm-mm.
Probably deserved it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What a guy.
Makes you cry.
Und I did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know at the beginning of the movie when Mr. Riffraff stands in the window and they're singing A Light Over at the Frankenstein place? That he was actually only standing on a singular wooden beam. Very dangerous. The woman, Miss Susan Sarandon, got pneumonia being in that castle. Very sick. Because she was just in her underwear the whole time. And then also being in the pool for an extended amount of time too. Got really sick.
Yeah. Her and the actor who played Brad was talking about in an interview that, she got pneumonia and it was just horrible working conditions because they were cold and wet all the time.
I don't think that castle they were filming in had any heat. You know what else I thought was weird? You know what, the time warp?
Yeah.
It was so strange that there's only like 10 people at this party. And it's like Frankenfurter, like you think he would hang out with like, people who, so it's like, for example, like Magenta is like a character. She's like her own thing. She looks a certain way. She's different, right? And then Columbia, she's like her own thing. And Riff Raff, he's like his own thing. And then you have all of these like random people who like kind of look the same. They're like party goers. Why are they dressed similarly? I just kind of wish I saw more diversity in that party, in that cast. But simultaneously, I also wish I saw more of them. I wish that there was like an overwhelming amount of people who are at Frankenfurter's party. But it's actually like 10 people. And it's like actually kind of sad. It's a sad party. If I was at that party, I would also be like Janet, be like, we should get out of here. These are a bunch of freaks.
Hey, I'm gonna defend them. They look like they're having a great time. Just the 10 of them.
I didn't say that they weren't having a great time. I'm just saying it looks like, I'm not saying they're sad. 10 people in a ballroom is a sad party. Like
it's too big a
spin it
size
how you want to. Yeah, it was an inappropriate amount of people for the space that they took up. But check this out. This would have made it cool. You know how in Wizard of Oz, the movies in black and white up until she lands in Oz.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to do the same thing when the time warp hits. And I actually think that because they threw in the time warp because they were just like, every musical needs a dance number. And they put that in there and it became what it was. And it's incredible. But I do think that it would have really been emphasized by the use of color in that way, by having it black and white up until that point.
Yeah.
And then you would be like, whoa, they're waking up. Just kind of like in Poor Things, when she got her vision, and everything started being more colorful, and then things started becoming more realistic in tone as she progresses, the colors shift as well. And I think that if they had done that in Rocky Horror Picture Show, it would have made it even more successful. And then we would be not only able to see that the world was black and white until they went to the castle, but we would also be able to see the way that Brad and Janet were painted in pink and in blue in the beds that they're chosen, because when they're in the time warp, they're naked. But then we see them painted in their colors when they're put to bed.
Yeah, the cinematography leaves a lot to be desired. To put it lightly.
That is very delicately said, Javi.
I think it works ultimately to its advantage, to its like cult film status. I think that it works to it. Like Rocky Horror looks rough and kind of shabby, and it's like cinematography and it's like direction, like the way it's directed. But I think that adds to its like humbleness and its aesthetic. You can kind of like forgive anything that wasn't intentionally crappy or bad looking or campy feeling on purpose. Like any mistakes that were in there, you can kind of forgive it because that's kind of the aesthetic of it. It's like kind of supposed to look
like
bad.
A perfect laboratory for mistakes to be made.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's inspired from quote unquote bad films, from B,
you can't make
movies,
a mistake if your goal is to be bad.
Yeah. So that really works to its advantage.
Okay. What was your favorite scene?
Dr. Scott, Janet, Brad, Janet, Rocky, Dr. Scott, Janet, Brad, Janet, Rocky, Dr. Scott, Janet, Brad, Janet.
Donkey!
Yeah, I love that scene from Shrek 2. That actually makes me think, where did that phrase "Great Scott" come from? Because they say it in this movie, they say it in Back to the Future, they've said it in many movies, many different times. Hailey, put your tits away. What's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is when Frankenfurter introduces himself and sings Sweet Transvestite. I really appreciate the way that he's hidden and then exposes himself in a really unabashed way and totally takes the stage and claims power, and he shows us something we've never seen really before.
Yeah, I got confident watching him.
Yeah.
Like it was just rubbing off on him.
Yeah.
It's like his delivery of the lyrics too. It's like Transylvania. Ha ha. And then when he's like ramping it up for the last chorus, he's like, hit it, and he's like all amped up in his body movements, like punching the air. I'm like, damn.
One of my favorite parts of the song is when they go, so why don't you stay for the night? Maybe a bite. Yeah, I love that part. Because it's like, because you got Magenta and Columbia there on both sides, and they look like sexy hyenas. Time for polyamory note.
So when they got a flat tire and Brad said for Janet to stay in the car while he goes to a castle to see if they have a phone, she says, "No, I'll go with you. The owner of that phone might be a beautiful woman,
and I'll never see you again." Sorry.
You might never come back.
You might never come back.
Yeah.
And then Brad got his dick sucked. And then Janet got her pussy licked, I guess.
So there's some playful, not jealousy or anything, but I guess, insecurity that there's going to be a woman more beautiful than her to take her man away.
And instead
Then
it was
later-
a man dressed as a woman. And then, but it was also dressed as her. It was a man dressed as a woman. It was a man dressed as her.
Mm-hmm.
A representation of women.
Yeah. And then, so later, we have the quote from Janet saying, meeting Rocky, and Frank's like, what do you think? She's like, I don't like men with too many muscles.
I didn't make him for you.
Yeah. You know,
I don't like a man with too many muscles.
I can't.
And then she ends up.
I couldn't tell if Frankenfurter in that moment was jealous or offended.
I think offended.
Mm-hmm.
Not jealous. That wouldn't make sense in that moment. He definitely was jealous later because Janet took his man.
Yeah. So it turns out Janet does like muscles, but she withheld it from Brad
because she
He's
didn't want to
not
make
as
him
muscly.
insecure, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe she didn't allow herself to like muscles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was monogamously minded to be like, well, this is my partner, and
I like my partner.
Yeah, I like my partner, and only this. No, I don't like that guy because he doesn't look that way. And so then Janet cheats on Brad with Frank after some convincing, and then Brad cheats on Janet with Frank after some convincing.
I thought it was the real thing.
Yeah. That whole scene. That's
Just took the wig off. It's like a brown man.
yeah. You know. It's dark, whatever. Anyways, these people cheat on each other with Frank. Frank is like manipulative in this way.
He's like, do you really want her to see you like this?
Yeah. It's like he pretends to be someone he's not at first.
Yeah.
And then once he's revealed, he kind of pressures them into it.
Yeah.
And
he gets on them like a salesman, though. It's like reluctant consent.
Yeah. Yeah, not the best.
No.
Not the best sexual liberation scene or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Janet says, how could you? After discovering that Brad cheated on her.
Do you think that maybe in her mind she might have thought it was worse because it was homosexual? But she represents like the traditional values.
I'm not sure.
What do you think now? I think maybe.
I didn't catch
because if she goes,
like
how could you, right? But she had done it. So she's not like, oh, yeah, I get it. Me too. She's like, how could you? And it's like, oh, maybe it's because it's hitting harder. It could be just because he did it. And like, because it's like in relationships, sometimes you'll see somebody get really, really jealous and accuse someone of cheating when it turns out they were actually cheating. Sometimes you'll get accused of something that the other person is actually doing because they're doing it and they don't want to get caught. So they'll accuse you of doing it. So she's like, how could you? Like getting extra upset. This actually doesn't fall super far out of the narrative of reality. But I do question, because she's meant to represent the standard traditional values. If her character got a little bit more offended and felt like she could take further retribution by sleeping with even another man, because the fact that it was a homosexual relationship versus a heterosexual relationship made it worse. And therefore her sleeping with two cis men, two penis bodied people is the same as Brad sleeping with one penis bodied person.
This is a film that has a lot of queer layers to it. So that could totally be a valid reading of it. Or one that was in the thoughts of the writers when they were writing that. If that's true, I could have used some, even if she said, how could you, with a man or with another man, or something, like some kind of indication that it was not hateful, but I guess
understanding what she was really upset about.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we don't.
Because all that she's giving me here is that
she's upset.
She's upset that he cheated.
Yeah. Oh, we don't even know that. She could be. She's upset about him being with a man. Maybe she's not even upset that he cheated because she got that. Who knows? I
don't know.
He was smoking a cigarette. What if she was just mad about the cigarette?
She lost her virginity to Frankenfurter.
No way.
Yeah, that's what she indicated.
Oh, wow.
That she said she's never.
That's a big deal, too. I would say, like, that kind of has the same weight.
Yeah,
because that's a big deal for, people to save themselves until marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then for her to do it with Frankenfurter. That's actually kind of crazy. I didn't realize that.
And then the last thing I have on these polynotes is this love triangle between Frankenfurter, Magenta, and Eddie.
Oh.
Frankenfurter and Eddie were together.
Wait. Before you move on to that, I just want to make sure that we talked about every aspect between Brad, Janet, and Frankenfurter.
Okay.
So, why do you think Frankenfurter chose to seduce two people like that in an evening? Do you think, he is an alien. Do you think that, why, what?
Because he could. Because they're there. If he takes both of them down, basically. Huh. If he takes both of them down, if he took only one of them down, then the other person might be like, "Oh, what are you doing? Come on, let's get out of here." Or he might only get one.
Power.
Yeah, he could get two. He has he's the king, the queen of this place. And so he gets these two people who he knows he can manipulate.
He isolates them and conquers them. Yeah, isolate and conquer. It's like a war tactic.
He wants them. He's going to get them, and he does.
Because, if they were going to be married, why separate them? And that's a divide and conquer thing.
Sure.
Damn.
I saw, I came, I conquered.
And what the hell is with those, cameras everywhere? Magenta and Columbia just, fucking creeping on people all night.
Another sense of power, I think. Frankenfurter has his eyes everywhere.
Damn. Imagine being in a place and being so... Because Janet did see the camera, and she saw it, got under just a little bit, and then chose to cover herself when she saw that she was being monitored. That is kind of scary.
Big Brother is watching. Always watching, Wazowski. So there's this love triangle between Frankenfurter, Columbia, and Eddie. Frankenfurter is dating Eddie. Then he chooses Columbia over Eddie. Then Columbia goes with Eddie over Frankenfurter. And then Frank gets jealous and tries to kill Eddie. I guess he takes half his brain out, dumps him in the freezer and forgets about him. And then Eddie / Meatloaf comes out, rocks and rolls for a song, and then Frankenfurter actually murders him.
For real this time?
Yeah.
Why won't you stay dead?
Horrifying.
Yeah. And what was really horrifying was Columbia's acting.
Oh, dang. I love it. Well, I love the the song where he's like, "Don't dream it, be it," and he's like, they're in a pool, and they're it's like a play pool, basically, like a orgy.
I think it was an orgy.
Yeah, it's like an orgy, make-out session, group pool play. They were just all touching bodies. I didn't care who it was. It was all, yeah.
These relationship dynamics are just toxic. You got Brad and Janet not really allowing themselves to be free and self-expressed. So they're very repressed, entering the space of complete freedom. And then they're taking advantage of by a powerful manipulator who's not of this world. And then you got, the whole relationship between Eddie, Columbia, and I guess Rocky, and also Frankenfurter. And it's all betrayal, power, manipulation, jealousy, and rage. And those are not the mixings for a healthy polyamorous connection.
Mm-mm.
Frankenfurter was very much it's my way or no way. you know? And like when Janet got in the way of him and Rocky, he started chasing Janet around with a chainsaw or something? No, maybe just like trying to hit her, making her feel weird and like harassing her and making fun of her and making her feel less than. And he was saying your cherry pie don't taste too nice and just like belittling her in front of everybody and chasing her around like that.
Yeah, awful.
Mm-hmm. And then 3 men stood up for Janet, being like, don't hurt her, you know? And then Frankenfurter Medusifies them all. Never really understood how that worked. But turned them into stone, put them in a corset, and made them dance.
Yeah. Frankenfurter would fit most likely under the, without the religious aspect of polygamy or polyandry, whatever. It's just like one person has all these partners, but all these partners cannot date anybody like except that one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the situation between Rocky, Brad, and Janet. But I don't think that Janet was trying to get anything serious out of anything. I don't think that there was ever an intention for a relationship with anything except for the dynamic between Columbia, Eddie, and Frankenfurter. And then Frankenfurter made Rocky because I think what he really wanted was Eddie. And he realized he couldn't have him as he was. And he thought maybe half of him would be enough. I wonder why, if he had Rocky and Eddie got loose and was with Columbia, why couldn't he let that half of Eddie be with Columbia? Why did he have to kill him? Mm-hmm. If I can't have you, no one can. But yeah. I have half of you. You know, it's power. It's just greed, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Because he could have just let him go. You know, Eddie was functional enough to look like he was himself. Nobody was really questioning his behavior. So it kind of seems like maybe he hadn't changed that much, even with losing half of his brain. And he could have ran off with Columbia, and Columbia was so stoked. And then Frankenfurter took the joy from everyone in the room.
Oh, you make me so sad. It was such a cheery song.
Hot patootie.
But no, that's the sad reality of this mad scientist.
And what makes me really sad is that, like, you know, at the end when he murders Mr. Eddie in the freezer, he comes out with these like pink bloody gloves, and he just kind of acts like he dropped a plate of hors d'oeuvres, and then he has Magenta remove his bloody gloves, and Magenta just like complies.
Yeah.
Ew. And it's like, oh, we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen, I guess.
Yeah, it's like horrendous. Like it's like legit, like a horrifying murder.
Yeah. And also at the end, like, did he feed Eddie? Like, did he feed was the dinner Eddie?
Yeah. So he fed Eddie to his uncle.
Oh, God.
They all cannibalized him.
That's horrid.
Unknowingly.
Horrid. Who cooked the meal? Who cooked the meal? Was it Riff Raff? Was it Magenta? It was probably Magenta.
I don't know. Anyways.
Yikes.
I remember doing the time warp. No, I think from that point, that's actually when the movie starts to take it's more like serious tone. You know, you have all those ballads in a row and all that. So yeah, I think that's like right in the half point is Meatloaf turning into Meatloaf.
Yo, Javi, you're so deep.
Thank you.
It's time to answer the question: could these problems be solved with polyamory? Let's first discuss the relationship dynamics between Janet, Brad, and Frankenfurter. Could these problems be solved with polyamory? I'm going to say the problem that could be solved with polyamory in reference to this dynamic is Brad and Janet could have had a mutual understanding about their sexual explorations where they could have been able to combat the situation with Frankenfurter in a way that was already accessible and working. Frankenfurter, his problems couldn't be solved because he was like literally disguised. His whole thing was deception and manipulation and power. So whatever he was doing was just evil and can't be solved with polyamory, because even if he was polyamorous, his ultimate root of his actions is deception, manipulation, and power.
And rape culture.
And what?
Rape culture.
And rape culture. You're right. I didn't even think about that. You're right. And that's just doesn't work in polyamory. But how Janet and Jad, that was like their couple name. How Janet and Brad could have, if they were poly, then they might have been able to and have better equipped for situations like that, where it wouldn't have been such a morally ambiguous, scary, and unethical situation that they found themselves in.
Mm.
But they didn't really have the tools for that because they represented, traditional values and all the blocks that are in the way of people being self-expressed and all the things that people have to work through on a societal level to become that.
What's our couple name?
Oh, okay. Well, you're Javier and I'm Hailey. So I guess we're Javier. or Hailey.
Okay, deal. From here on out, we are Cornelius.
You fool.
All right.
Okay, so what do you think about that dynamic?
I say no.
So what?
So polyamory could not solve that issue.
In what way?
I'm going to say no to polyamory cannot solve any issue Frankenfurter is involved with.
I'm agreed.
So I'm going to say it's weird because could these problems be solved with polyamory?
What did you think about what I said about Brad and Janet?
I think so. Brad and Janet, I think they could be polyamorous after the movie, post movie, after their experience.
Post movie, they've broken their trust, and each person would take years to rebuild that.
Yeah, and I think actually in the sequel they deal with that.
Oh, what?
I think, yeah, 'cause I think they're having their marriage is struggling or something like that.
Oh my god, I need to watch this.
I think I'm not sure. I need to
watch this. I'll watch it with my dad. He loves crappy movies.
Yeah. So
I was saying that if Brad and Janet entered the situation polyamorous, that might have been a way that the situation could have been saved. But but Frankenfurter's aspect, no. But so hypothetically, Brad and Janet are polyamorous, traditional values couple, and I guess that's kind of that doesn't really make sense. I guess is double entendre, maybe not. It's a double standard. No, it's doesn't necessarily make sense. It's contradictory to be a polyamorous couple with values, but let's just say the values that they represent maybe are just cisgender, and that's where it ends and begins. So they're polyamorous cisgender couple, and they show up to the castle, and they're kind of skeeved out. Their relationship's open, and they both understand that love is love, and that's great, but they really just kind of date other cis people, and they don't really understand the queer community. So they enter the space and they're totally taken away and they're uncomfortable and they're super weirded out and they really want to just get the hell out of there. And then, Frankenfurter comes in their bedroom pretending to be their partner. And yeah, that really sucks. But their boundaries are actually set up in a way where they could deal with the situation without it actually infringing on the boundaries of their relationship. And yeah, in the morning, let's say that Janet woke up and was like, hey, Frankenfurter pretended to be you last night, and we used a condom, so just letting you know that happened. And that's how polyamory could have solved that in terms of their relationship, but not what Frankenfurter was doing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. The other dynamic is, so let's do Frankenfurter and Eddie first, right? That was a couple. What happened with them? They just broke up?
No, Frankenfurter just decided he wanted to be with Columbia and not Eddie anymore.
Okay, so it kind of seems and I don't believe that Frankenfurter doesn't believe he couldn't have both of these people. So I don't, because he's not dealing with being not self-expressed. He just likes to use people. So that wouldn't work. any relationship with Frankenfurter is not workable, really, it seems, because his whole thing is deception, manipulation, and power. So Eddie and Frankenfurter, scrapped. Columbia and Frankenfurter, scrapped. And then why did he hurt Eddie then?
Because he was jealous when Columbia left Frank for Eddie.
Okay.
So he was jealous.
So something that polyamory, quote unquote, could have helped that in that moment was Frank could have practiced compersion in that experience. And obviously, because his whole thing is power, that was not possible. So he didn't practice compersion, and he instead chose to, attack Eddie and take half of his brain and put it in a new, hotter version, and then be able to manipulate and control this person who only has literally half a brain, and just use him for sex. So Eddie goes in the fridge, and then Columbia is just sad, no longer with Eddie, no longer with Frankenfurter, watching Mr. Frankenfurter create this creation, and they're about to have this party. And then Eddie comes out of the fridge, and she and Eddie are reunited. And then Frankenfurter once again does not practice compersion and then murders Eddie, leaving Columbia alone. That is 100% just all Frankenfurter's doing. Everything there was only negatively impacted due to Frankenfurter's need for control.
Yeah.
Control doesn't work in polyamory.
Mm-mm.
It's the opposite of that. It's like freedom and allowing your partner to be free and being happy that they're free. And it's kind of, I like the metaphor of being like me and Javi are like two birds in a cage, except the cage door is open. And when a bird flies away, that is like a little scary, but they come back because that's where home is. And then the cage door is still open, and then they come home because they choose to, because they love you.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's just how I feel.
Yeah, there's a quote. I liked it. I heard it in a YouTube video when I first started researching polyamory back in 2019. And it said, this couple, this is where I got that metaphor. I don't know where you've been, little birdie, but I'm sure glad you came back. And then I made an illustration for my boyfriend at the time, who I was trying to convince to be polyamorous with me.
I saw that painting. Yeah. So could these problems be solved with polyamory?
With Frankenfurter, Eddie, and Columbia? They could, but Frankenfurter's personality won't allow for it.
Yeah, I say no.
Well, they could, though. These problems could be solved with polyamory, but Frankenfurter's personality won't allow for it. If Frankenfurter was different, these relationship dynamics could be solved with polyamory, because Frankenfurter would just need to practice a little compersion. And then he could have still been with Eddie, who he clearly still liked to a degree, because he couldn't allow Eddie to live to be with Columbia. I don't think that he was more interested in Columbia than he was in Eddie, because Eddie was the person's brain he took, not Columbia's.
Yeah.
So I think that whatever existed there, whether it be love or the need to control or whatever, I'm just going to call it love for the sake of argument, or interest, was there for Eddie, and he left Eddie for Columbia, and then they had their own affair. It sounds like easily they could have been in a throuple if Frankenfurter didn't have such a need for control and power.
Sure.
So I think, yes, these problems could be solved with polyamory, but you have to bring yourself to the table in a way that you're willing to work on it and allow the people in your dynamic to be free too.
Well, yeah, when you put it like that, like when we're talking about the dynamics of it.
Yeah, people can rise to the challenge of polyamory. It's like, could Javi 5 years ago be good for polyamory? Maybe not. You had to grow into it, just like I did, just like everyone does.
Yeah.
To be the best version of yourself. So it's not about your personality or who you are or what you're dealing with right now. If Frankenfurter, right before he murdered Eddie in that freezer, stopped, and there's a close-up on his face, and he looks at Eddie, and there's a flashback of all the times they had and how much love they actually had and how much pain he was actually in when he chose Columbia, and maybe Frankenfurter realized how much he loved him and how he didn't want to lose him, and he thought that the only way that he could have him was in death, all of those things. And then he stopped and he said, I'm sorry. and I'll be better for you. I love you. And that's how he could have changed. And that's how anybody can rise to the challenge of what polyamory can be and how confronting it can be for the issues that you're dealing with.
That's beautiful. You should have written the sequel. Well, you've turned me around. I say yes then.
Okay. So, could these problems be solved with polyamory? Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad we agree.
Mm-hmm.
A gentleman's agreement. Can you read some reviews of the film?
Oh, yeah. We didn't give our star rating. So, out of 5 stars, what do you give this?
It's tough to say because it's like such a huge, generous classic. It feels like rating like Romeo and Juliet or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say, because this is personal for me, I'm going to say it's a 3.
Okay. I'm going to give this a 4.5.
You can do half stars?
Yeah.
I'm going to do 3.5 then, is more authentic for me.
All right. I take away half a star because I think the ending has way too many ballads in a row. Like it feels like 5 ballads in a row.
I don't like the ending.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite part, actually.
Yeah. I do like how much like Frankenfurter's death, even in death, it's like a sexual innuendo where like he's climbing and then they shoot him down and then ropes come all over him.
Oh God.
They literally shot ropes all over him.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know? Like that's funny.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, like the house is a spaceship or whatever, you know, it's like
I was like, what in the hell? And they're
it's
like
so
crawling
cheesy.
around there in freaking fishnets.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
It's so stupid. But yeah, I just think it gets a little slow, you know. I could have done with a 90-minute flick, you know, in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it was 90 minutes. I don't know. It felt a little bit longer. It's just a little long. That's it. That's it for me. I usually am a stickler about cinematography and I want the visual to be as interesting as but you know what? It's campy. Whatever. It works.
I give it 3.5 because I don't necessarily love the aesthetic of older films, and there are parts of it that I do find a drag. I find the time warp to be a drag, even though I dance to it and I find it exciting and it's all fun. I think, I don't necessarily enjoy those parts. I don't enjoy the ending. I would say that there's a lot about this film that I actually don't enjoy in watching it, but it's ultimately a super fun experience. And I love the community that has been built around it.
Yeah, word. Letterboxd has an average of 4 out of 5 stars.
Word.
So,
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So let's see. Rocky saying his life is misery after being alive for 2 seconds is a mood.
That's pretty good.
No, don't get killed by a laser beam. You're so sexy. You read this one.
Frank lived, he served cunt, and then he died.
All right. Imagine how awkward that drive home must have been. Brad and Janet are dead ass what I envision straight people at Pride are like.
I'm cold and wet and I just want to go home.
This person said I thought this was a boxing movie. But instead it was just a bunch of gay people. WTF? 5 question marks.
They got all confused. Rocky.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's so funny. Do you think they meant that authentically?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think they're definitely joking. So yeah, there's Rocky Horror Picture Show. All right. Well, what are we watching next month?
Okay. So next month We are watching 9, which is based off 8.5. And I have not seen this.
Cool. 8.5 is from the 50s or 60s, I believe. And they made a musical off of it, which neither of us have ever seen. It's a date.
The date. Guys, I have a date. My boyfriend's going to be pissed.
Yeah, my wife's going to be pissed.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please share, review, or comment to help us get discovered by new listeners. You can follow us on Instagram at Just Be Poly Podcast to stay updated on new episodes. I'm Hailey.
And I'm Javi.
And this has been the Just Be Poly Podcast. See you next time.